Hi everyone! Today I'm going to be talking about how to figure out difficult herbarium specimen labels. Specifically, how to go about translating them, finding out the specific location they were collected from, and just decoding difficult handwriting. I've been doing research at the University of Cincinnati at the Margaret H. Fulford Herbarium. I've been studying fern allies, and a lot of them happen to be from the late 1800s and are in German. So I've been databasing all these specimens, which means I take pictures of them and translate and just determine the details that are written on the specimen labels. Today I'm going to be going over two different labels, and both are written in German. The information in this video can be applied not only to German labels, but also those with difficult handwriting or in a different language. I'm going to be screen recording for the rest of the video, just to show my process of trying to decode and understand these difficult labels.
This is one of the harder labels I've come across in my research. So the first step I usually take is just to try to write everything out that you see in the label here, just with a pen and a paper. Sometimes writing it out helps you just differentiate between the different letters and just kind of to get a feel for how the author may have written it out. Then you can obviously just write it out in your normal handwriting as well. And so after you go ahead and write everything out, I usually reread it just to see where there might be a mistake or what doesn't look, quite right. If you see there's a word that has like 3 vowels in a row, obviously there might be something wrong there. Or if there is a weird combination of consonants, I usually just go ahead and star those words then, just so I know that they're probably not correct. And when you're dealing with a label that is in a different language, it's always a good idea to go ahead and identify the language before proceeding further. I usually do this by finding a word that I'm almost confident I got right, and then I'll go ahead and put that into a online translator and see if that will detect a certain language, and then you can go from there. Of course, it's always helpful if the author includes a main country of origin that's able to be picked out easily from the label. In this case, the author did not do that. So this is a sample that is from Germany, and the label is written in German. So then after you determine what language it's in, it's always a good idea to pull up a alphabet sheet that might have the written letters, the capitals, as well as the lowercase from the language and the era, especially if it's in cursive. So this sample is from the late 1800s, so this is from 1897. So I just went ahead and just Googled German script 1800s, and then I went through and clicked through some of the different options and compared it to the handwriting of our collector here. And I found this had the most similar handwriting to the collector, as well as it just has a bunch of different types in one image. So that is very helpful. Since handwriting isn't something that is straight across the board, usually your collector isn't going to have the exact same handwriting, and the letters aren't going to be written the exact same way. So you kind of have to use your imagination a little bit to figure out what exactly they are writing. Okay, so usually I'll just go through and try to verify the first letter of each word. That is your best indicator of how to go through and get the word correct, is finding out the first letter. So that is the most important. Here, this obviously looks like a G, so you don't really have to, if you didn't think it looked like a G, you can go through and try to determine what letter this could have been. This specific image actually doesn't have a G that looks too similar to this one. These are kind of similar, but then you can go ahead and click through other images that might have a little bit of a different handwriting than this one does. Okay, and then this letter, this looks like a lowercase to me, so I'd go through and look at all the lowercase letters and see if it looks like any of the letters included on this alphabet chart. So honestly, this one, I've just become familiar with the German B, especially with this specific collector. So he doesn't connect the line all the way to the B. So it does look kind of similar to this, but he just has the line spaced out a little bit so it's not making a full circle. So it does look like this one quite a bit. And then this, I think it's pretty obvious that this one is a W. It just has the usual W look that we even write with in, present day English cursive. And then this, it's just an A, a lowercase a. That's just what it looks like. And then this one's a little more difficult. I had some trouble with this at first. Once you figure it out, it makes a lot more sense. So I just went through and just looked at all the different lowercase letters to see which it most looked like. And I ended up settling on the fact that it looks like a lowercase d. It looks slightly similar to these two here. It is still different, so you just kind of have to use your best guess to see which it looks the most similar to. Because you're not usually going to have an exact match. And then we can go ahead and go to the next letter. So this looks like another capital since it's not connected to the rest of the word. This one's a bit different than what we'd be used to in present-day English cursive. It doesn't really look like any letters that at least I was familiar with. So if it's a capital, we can just go ahead and go down our list of the different capital letters. And it doesn't really look like any of the ones in these columns. So then we scoot over, and then we find that it kind of looks like this letter right here. It actually is a pretty good representation of this. So that would be a German capital S in this case. So this word would start with an S, and right over here, we can definitely see that this is just an N. So we went through and found the capital letters or just the beginning letter of all the words in this descriptor for the label. And then it's a good idea just to go through and try to isolate each letter and try to figure out where it begins and where it ends. And then just go through your, alphabet chart or whatever you're really using to figure out the different letters. And in addition to investigating what letters the author used, it's a good idea to become a little familiar with the alphabet that you're trying to translate. So like in German, they have a letter called an Esset. So that is used pretty frequently in German. I know it's commonly known as, it looks like a capital B. And so it stands for just two S's, usually two S's in a row. And then in particular, German cursive, especially from like the late 1800s, it tends to look like a lowercase p, or at least to me, that's what it looks like. I know I struggled a bit with understanding, especially that some of these letters were in fact an Esset and were not a P. For example, in this label, this is the word Wasserwerk, which means waterworks in English. Here we can see an example of the Esset. So for a while, I did think this was a P, but then upon closer inspection, it is not a P, it is an Esset. So that would stand for two S's. And another example of that in this specific label would be this collector's last name, which is Kalfus. So this would be another Esset and would be pronounced with two S's at the end. Another thing to keep in mind is that in German, they use umlauts over some of the letters. So here, this is a U, and although it doesn't look like two dots, that is what it represents. But we can see that on this image. They kind of show it's like a little squig. It can be two dots, or it can just be like a little squiggle over the letter that essentially means that it is an umlaut. Alrighty, so we can go ahead and just try to translate it word by word and see what we come up with for this label. So we can go ahead and just start with the first word. So this looks like it says bushes, and see it's even correcting me to put the umlaut over the U. And so we can see that the first word is bushes, and then the next word, at the. So bei, bei is commonly used in German to say at or like in. It's a good descriptor that is commonly used in these labels to kind of describe where the sample is found. And I already went over how this word was waterworks in English. Then auf den. So bushes at the waterworks, on the. And this one was a very tricky word to try to figure out since it's so long and a lot of the letters, kind of go together. So I have a different method for figuring out this word. And once you get to know some of the like the setup of the labels, it can vary by author, but in German I've found that they kind of follow the same setup of how they write out where the specimen was found at. So they usually, at least in my experience, they use like the descriptor, like if it was found in a forest or the bushes or somewhere, kind of like a habitat descriptor by a place, a city, or a village, town, some sort of location. And then they usually say it's near a bigger city, like one that's more noticeable. So this last word is Nuremberg, which is a large city in Germany. So then I would go ahead and go to Google Maps, and then we would figure out from there where exactly this location might be. So we can figure it out without knowing the full word. Of course, it's always a good idea to at least try and maybe like Google the word that you think it is, like S something by Nuremberg, and maybe it'll come up. But if you don't have such luck, I usually resort to Google Maps. And let me pull that up real fast. And here's the full translation that I put into another translator just to verify where exactly this was, or just another translator to verify that the information was correct, because Google Translate isn't always correct. So I usually like to double check my work and put it into multiple translators to see if they come up with the same thing. So we can go ahead and go to Google Maps, and I've already gone ahead and found Nuremberg. So we are here already. And then this can take quite a bit of time, but I usually just zoom in and look around the city to see if I can find another location that looks similar to the one that I had written out. So this one is similar. At first, I thought it could be what I was looking for, but obviously it's not as long as the word that we were looking for in the label. So we're definitely missing a few letters in the middle, so this can't be it. So then we just keep scrolling, keep looking around. And this is going to be a more speedy version since I already know where this location is, since I have done this in the past. But usually it can take a good chunk of time trying to figure out where the location is. But then it's kind of fun. You get to explore. So here we actually come across Schwarzenbrook, which is actually exactly what is written on our label. So then we can go ahead and zoom in. So it's a waterworks, so it would make sense that it is near a river or a water source, perhaps. So we can just keep looking and see if we can. If it's okay if you can't find the exact location, because that waterworks might not exist anymore, or whatever location you're really looking for. But it's always a good idea to at least be able to find the general area and then continue your research from there. Luckily, in this case, I was actually able to find the location of the exact waterworks. So it is in the bushes near the waterworks, so it would probably be in this general area. So then we went ahead and found that location. All right, so moving on to the next label I have. This one's a little different because obviously it's not handwritten, it's printed. So it is easy to make out what it's saying. So here it says the location is Königsberg, Walder by Friedrichstein, and it has the date over here. So this looks like it's from 1873. So we always just want to verify the location just to see where it's actually at and to see if things have changed over the years. So it's a good idea. You could just go ahead and just Google the location just to try to get some more information about it. Okay, so this looks like you would think it would be in Germany because this is definitely a German name, as well as this is a German looking name as well. But as we see here, Königsberg was a name for a Prussian city. So this is no longer, obviously it's not Prussia, it's not in Germany anymore. This is a location that is in Russia. So we can go ahead and see that the name has changed. So now it's called Kaliningrad, and that's in Russia. So we need to go ahead and finish the rest of the label. So we can just go ahead and go back to Google Translate. Okay, so we can start off by just writing the word Walder. Okay, so it's still German, and that just means woods. So it's woods by or near the woods at Friedrichstein. So I'm going to assume that this is a location. It didn't translate it, and it's capitalized, so we can go ahead and just Google it. Friedrichstein. Okay, Friedrichstein. The first thing that comes up is a place in Germany, but it's a good idea to type out the location on the label as well, just to verify that you're getting the right place. So Friedrichstein, Königsberg. Alrighty, so we see information about Königsberg, nothing about Friedrichstein in the first two. And then we come down to Friedrichstein Castle. So it looks like it was in Königsberg back in the day. So we're able to, the castle doesn't exist anymore. As we can see just from the simple Google search, have some nice images of what it looked like. But we can still figure out where the location once was and then use that for our locality. So it's always a good idea to do some research on your locations before you go ahead and enter them in your database, or just take it at what it's written and just assume that it still exists. So you have to do some investigative work in order to figure out the correct location for some of these specimens. My last tip for you is when you're trying to figure out what the species name is. So if you're able to make out that it says, I'll go back to the other label, just so it's a little easier to use this as an example, because this one's obviously written out, so it is easy just to Google, and you can obviously tell what the species name is. A helpful tool for figuring out species names is tropicos.org. So you can just go ahead and type in the genus. And then it'll go ahead and just include all of the different species that would fall under the genus Equisetum. And so then you can, if you can't make out what the second word is, you can at least, if you can see that it starts with an A, then you'd be able to look and compare all of the different options that are available to you. This makes it a lot easier to be able to figure out exactly what your label or what your specimen is if you're not familiar with the genus or with the species in general, just so you can make sure that you get the right specimen and you're not Googling for hours trying to figure out what it might actually say. This website's great because it tells you if the species name is still accepted, so you know what the present day name is for the species, because a lot of things have changed over the years. So a species that someone identified in 1897 might not be called the same thing anymore. So it's always a good idea to check these before you are entering them into a database, or really whatever you're doing with these specimens, just to make sure you're getting the proper information as to what species it is. And again, checking the locations to make sure they're accurate. So if you're doing any research with these specimens, that it is also correct. Well, that is all I have for you today. I hope you learned something from my experiences with translating and just figuring out difficult labels in general. Thanks for watching.